at why Andhra Pradesh having three capitals is an advantage for Andhra Pradesh in the current circumstances, and why and how is it similar to the mission Mangalyaan that recently succeeded in its first attempt to reach Mars. And now in this video we'll have look at two pathways, basically two pathways where USA had reached Mars. It had done several attempts, but India reached Mars on its very first attempt. Now we look at the pathways in which they reached Mars. Now remember, both reached Mars, but only the pathways are different. The way or the time of travel, or rather the kind of journey they both took are different in very different ways. Now we look at USA. USA plan is very simple because it's very rich country, it's economically very sound, it had lots and lots of fuel, such that now if we come into the solar system, this is basically a solar system with sun around, the planets around it, arranged in a way as it's given there. Now we'll basically look at what's happening between the Earth and the Mars. Now this is Earth and this is the gravitational field of the Earth. Now we all know the gravitational field of the Earth exerts only until a certain limit. Now what USA had done? USA is economically very sound country. It had lots of fuel. It had rich budget in the rover mission to Mars. Now what they had done is they had enough fuel so that they had the power and the fuel to overcome the gravitational field of the Earth and enter the gravitational field of the Mars and make its satellite insert into one of the orbits of the gravitational field of the Mars. Now that's as simple as it gets, because it's just going in a straight way. It's just the straight path. But it's very difficult if you're an Indian, because India doesn't have that much budget. We don't have 670 crores to invest just on a mission which we don't know which might be successful or not. So what India had done, the ISRO scientists are very smart. They've kept things in a very different way. But the difference in reaching Mars by India is different. Now what they've done is, I got to give credit to the ISRO scientists, especially in this way, in the manner in which they send their satellite to insert into one of the orbits of the Mars to take photographs and make further experimentation and know the further details regarding the Mars. Now what happens is, in the mission of the mission Mangalyaan, as they used to call the MOM, Mars Orbiter Mission, which is popularly known as the MOM. Now what they've done is they have just fired with a very less fuel and made its satellite insert into one of the orbits of the Earth. Now this is the orbit of that satellite around the Earth's gravitational field. Now the doubt that people get is, now what's the use? We got to insert the orbit, we got to insert the satellite into the orbit of the Mars. Now why is it rotating around the orbit of the Earth? Now the very simple strategy is, India did not, remember, the fuel and the budget is very important, because that's what is the deciding factor here in this scenario. Now what you've done is, this short distance here is the only thing where India have used the fuel. Remember when there is gravitational field, you don't need fuel. It just rotates in an orbit around the Earth because there's gravitational field on the Earth. Now whenever they have come at a certain point, consider this point. Whenever they have come to a certain point, now what they've done is they fired again. And remember, fired again, because they're not using entire fuel, because we don't have fuel and we don't have the budget to make that fuel and go directly into Mars. Now remember, this is USA mission. Now what we are discussing is an Indian mission, which is a very smart, might seem complex, but it's a very smart move, especially taking into consideration the budget we have to deal with the mission to take our satellite to insert into an orbit into the Mars. Now what they've done is, at a certain point, we already discussed that this is the only point in which India have used the fuel, remember, and with the gravitational field of the Earth, they have made an orbit around the Earth in the gravitational field of the Earth. Now at a certain point, consider this point, at a certain point, what they've done is they increased its range. Now this is what. Now this is where. Let's take this vector. Let's take this vector and consider this is a point where it's increased this range. Now what you do? Now what it does is it takes a very, it takes an even higher orbit. It takes an orbit of even higher radius, even higher diameter. That's exactly what they've done. And remember, they're not using fuel for the entire orbit. Now they just used orbit, or rather they just used fuel just to increase the diameter or the radius of the orbit around the gravitational field of the Earth. Now let us consider this point, and they fired here and they used fuel only for the firing. Now they got a orbit with higher radius. They got an orbit with higher diameter. Similarly, at a certain point where they felt they can increase the radius of the orbit around the gravitational field of the Earth, they did once more. I don't know how many times they did. I'm not working in ISRO, but certainly they have done, as my memory is concerned, probably 4 or 5 times around the orbit of the Earth, and probably we can take one more. Now, when the satellite is rotating around the gravitational field of the Earth, now at a point when they have discovered that the orbit created by the satellite around the gravitational field of the Earth is very closer to the radius of the area covered by the gravitational field of the Earth, what they've done is, at a point where it can escape out from the gravitational field of the Earth, they fired again. You don't need to keep rotating around the gravitational field of the Earth, because that's not the main intention. Now what they've done is, at a point where to make it, our main objective is to make the planet, or rather the satellite, go outside the gravitational field of the Earth. Now at this point, what the mission Mangalyaan scientists, the ISRO scientists, have done is they fired in a way that the satellite goes outside the gravitational field of the Earth. Now at this point where it has gone here, the satellite, it doesn't rotate around the gravitational field of the Earth, and they have used very less fuel. Remember, they've used very less fuel because they just used fuel once here just to make an orbit around the Earth. They've used again here, and they used once more to just increase the at a certain point, to increase the radius and the diameter of the orbit at which the satellite is rotating around the gravitational field of the Earth. Now they also had done is they have made such kind of orbit with a radius or a diameter such that it's close to the end part of the gravitational field of the Earth, such that at that point they fired again, which means that the satellite is already outside the gravitational field of the Earth. Now this is a very smart move, because USA, if you consider USA, what the NASA people have done is they have to use fuel right throughout. They have to use right throughout, and it takes a lot of fuel. I promise it's a very big budget mission. It takes a lot of fuel, and especially to get out of the gravitational field of the Earth. But Indians, they have done very smartly in a very low budget mission. Now because it's outside the gravitational field of the Earth, now because of the solar radiation, because there's also one more smart move that has been done by the ISRO scientists, is that the antenna, or rather the solar plates at which are directed towards the direction of the sun. Now this is the direction. The sun will be somewhere here, and when it's coming when the solar radiation is coming towards this side, the 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 unusual orientation. Usually there is no the orientation like that, but for this mission they have kept an orientation such that without using fuel, the plates or the solar plates the of the planet at which are such that they have been exposed to the solar radiation, such that this satellite is being traveled into the orbit of the Mars, or rather into the gravitation, into the to the planet Mars, not by using fuel. We are not using fuel anymore. We have created a situation where we are losing very less fuel, but at the same time we are also using the sources around us. We use the solar radiation, we use the gravitational field of the earth, and made it trying to make it to the gravitational field of the Mars, and make the satellite insert into one of its orbit. Now now because we are using the solar radiation of the sun, what happens is, now it travels towards the direction of the Mars, not with any of the fuel. We are not using a fuel anymore, but we are using, but because there's already sun, there's natural source of energy, it's giving its solar radiation, and it's going towards the gravitational field of the Mars. Now when this satellite had reached Mars, now it's as simple as that. Now it's going into Mars, and now it got the destination, or the final point is the same for both India and USA. But the path which it took is different. Now look at this, the final point is different, and now both the Indian and the US mission has a similar endpoint, a similar destination, and they have both reached, and both the satellites are in its orbit, and they've landed on the Mars. They're taking the photographs, they're doing all the experimentations, and that's what it takes. Now we look at the calculations at which this happened, and why is it similar to the Andhra Pradesh situation at the moment, and how is it similar, and why the three capitals in Andhra Pradesh is best suited to this strategy, and why this analogy should be applied to the politics as well. Now if we consider at what happened behind the scenes, the very important thing is budget. The very important thing is money. Now without money, you just can't do anything. Now what happened? For USA, what happened is, USA is very rich country, as I said earlier before, that USA had very rich sources. They had enough fuel, such that they've spent around, I don't have the exact figures, but I think they spent around $670, or rather 670 crores on this mission to make it accomplished to reach Mars, because it had enough fuel. Whereas on the other side, India have spent just 70 crores. Now that's astonishing. Now both the end points are same, but USA had spent 670 crores, remember, and India have spent just 70 crores. Now people always state this very famously. Narendra Modi once pointed out that India's mission to Mars, it's like the budget is not even up to the a big space film of Hollywood. That's how low we managed to reach Mars with a very low budget. Now why and how is it similar to Amaravathi and the rest of the capital situations there? Now there's already been a proposal that to build Amaravathi you need 1,09,000 crores. Now this is similar to USA's 670 crores. Remember, these figures are very rough. It's better you can check the exact number of figures, but the 1,09,000 crores which are necessary to build Amaravathi as it is proposed is similar to very USA. But what's the situation of Andhra Pradesh? What's the financial status of Andhra Pradesh government at the moment? You barely have money. You don't have money. You just don't have money. Now what you gonna do? You don't have money, but you still got to develop your state. You still got to make people survive. You still got to give salaries. You still got to survive your state. And the survival of the state, or the development of the state, is very similar to reaching Mars, or rather the Mars itself. Now what the AP government had done is, they moved into plan B. The plan B is India's plan. Now what they have done is they've proposed three capitals in different places. Now what, because it's different places, we don't need to spend 6 or rather 1,09,000 crores in a single place. Now what that does is, now because the executive capital is shifted to Visakhapatnam, it's already been developed with 10% of the funds that is required Amravati to make a basic infrastructure. If you give the 10% of funds that is being given to Amravati to Vizag, it's gonna develop, as equal to Hyderabad as stated by the AP government. Now because they have said that, and after doing that, they're still reaching the if they could do this, if they could do this in the near future, I think it's more than reaching Mars. I think, as in, we are reaching development because because we the pathway in which the AP government chooses is very similar to India's mission to Mars, because we are choosing in a slightly less budget way because we don't have money. Now that, hypothetically imagine, now AP is a very rich state. It has lots of money to spend on, it has lots of money, just to throw into the waters. Now what they could have done, they could have gone the USA way. They could have gone the USA way. If had they had 1,09,000 crores, they could have built Amaravati. But just for the single reason, because Andhra Pradesh don't have 1,09,000 crores at the moment to build one city, now Andhra Pradesh government has shifted its plan B. Now plan B is India's plan. Very less budget, but the income is very high. Remember, if you give 10% of the funds that you give to Amravati, you get highest amount of revenue from Visakhapatnam, which is also necessary for the other development schemes across the state. Now remember why revenue income is very important, because remember, the state Telangana, which is which had the capital of Hyderabad has 30% income of the entire state. Remember, it's no way it matches to the area of the other other parts of the state. Just one city, that's Hyderabad, for Telangana, gets 30%. It's similar to, like, the India's top three, Virat Kohli, Shikhar Dhawan and Rohit Sharma. They three scored the bulk of the runs for India team in the last 5 years or so. When the top three have come into position, you can see that 45% of the runs that are scored by the India are done by Shikhar Dhawan, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. The reason being, they get a lot of opportunities and they score the bulk of the runs. Now the Hyderabad situation is very similar to the India's top three, India's senior cricket team top three. Now because they score a lot of runs, they get high value. Now Hyderabad has a lot of income, it gets high value, and the state government of Telangana is able to run the state. Now that AP has got a very good proposal in making Visakhapatnam as executive capital, it has very good chances in making its income come as well, and also make its revenue come, so that the money which has been coming from Visakhapatnam can be shifted to the development schemes of the other Andhra Pradesh. So I think this mission, the way in which India took, is being taken by the government of Andhra Pradesh, and I hope that people understand this. Now because we don't have enough money, because we are not USA, because we don't have 670 crores, we are not investing in to build a big development. Now we can we can actually take analogies. Now you can take Earth to be a very poorly or underdeveloped state. You can take Mars to be the highly developed state, in which we are trying to travel from underdeveloped state to a highly developed state. It has two pathways. Path one is through USA. You have lots of money, you spend on it. But path 2 is very important, which is what we are doing now, because considering the budget of Andhra Pradesh into consideration, what we are supposed to do now is it's a different path with very less budget but very high income. We still reach Mars. It's not that we are not reaching Mars. We still reach Mars, but in a very different pathway with a very low budget but very high income. And that's what I think the AP Sarkar is trying to do. And this is a very simple analogy to make you understand this this concept of how Indian space mission to Mars is similar to Andhra Pradesh capital, and also the Hyderabad's Hyderabad's income is very similar to India's top three in the senior batting cricket team. I hope people of Andhra Pradesh understands this and makes the AP government makes the AP governments and supports the AP government to welcome this decision, because at the moment this is the best of the lot. Thank you.